Greetings, dear listeners. Hope you're all doing well. We're out here tonight to welcome the arrival of the full snow moon. He's just coming up over the horizon, the full snow moon of February the 5th, 2023. And while the lovely and talented camera crew is giving us a panorama shot of tonight's aptly named full snow moon in our snowy landscape, I'm going to be telling you the story of one of the most infamous werewolves of the Middle Ages, JEAN GRENIER. JEAN GRENIER. So, stay tuned. JEAN GRENIER, adapted from the Book of Werewolves by the Reverend Sabine Baring-Gould. One fine afternoon in the spring, some village girls were tending their sheep on the sand dunes which intervene between the sea and the vast forests of pine covering the greater portion of the present department of Landes in the south of France. The brightness of the sky, the freshness of the air puffing up off the blue twinkling Bay of Biscay, the hum of the wind as it made rich music among the pines, which stood like a green uplifted wave on the east, the beauty of the sandhills, the charm of the forest skirts, tinted variously with the foliage of cork trees, pines, and acacia, all conspired to fill the peasant maidens with joy, and to make their voices rise in song and laughter, which rang merrily over the hills and through the dark avenues of evergreen trees. Now a gorgeous butterfly attracted their attention, then a flight of quails. But what is the matter with the sheep?" said Jean. She spoke because the sheep, which had been quietly browsing before her, had started away as though frightened at something. At the same time, one of the dogs began to growl and show its fangs. The girls ran to the spot and saw, sitting on a log, a boy of 13. His appearance was peculiar. Hair, tawny red and thickly matted, fell over his shoulders and completely covered his narrow brow. His small, pale gray eyes twinkled with an expression of horrible ferocity and cunning, while his complexion was of a dark olive color. His teeth were strong and white, the canine teeth protruding over the lower lip when the mouth was closed. The boy's hands were large and powerful, the nails black and pointed like talons. He was poorly dressed and seemed to be in the most abject poverty. The few garments he wore were in tatters, and through the rents the emaciation of his limbs was plainly visible. The girls stood around him, half frightened and much surprised. But the boy showed no symptoms of astonishment. Instead, his face relaxed into a gruesome leer, which showed the whole range of his glittering white fangs. "Well, my maidens," said he in a harsh voice, "which of you is the prettiest, I should like to know? Can you decide among you?" "What do you want to know for?" asked Joan, the eldest of the girls, aged 18, who took upon herself to be spokesman for the rest. Because I shall marry the prettiest," was the answer. "Ah," said Joan jokingly, "that is if she will have you, which is not very likely, as we none of us know you or anything about you." "I wear a wolf skin sometimes," replied the boy. "A wolf skin?" echoed the girl. "And pray, Who gave it to you? One called Pierre Labarante. There is no man of that name hereabouts. Where does he live? A scream of laughter, mingled with howls, came from the strange boy. The girls recoiled, and the youngest took refuge behind Joan. Do you want to know Pierre Labarante, lass? Hey, he is a man with an iron chain about his neck, which he is ever engaged in gnawing. Do you want to know where he lives, lass? Ha! In a place of gloom and fire, where there are many companions, some seated in iron chairs, burning, others stretched on glowing beds, burning too. Some cast men upon blazing coals, others roast men before fierce flames, and others plunge them into cauldrons of liquid fire. The girls trembled and looked at each other with scared faces, and then looked again at the hideous young man who crouched before them. You want to know about the wolfskin cape, lass? He continued. Pierre Labarante gave it to me. He wraps it round me, and every Monday, Friday, and Sunday, and for an hour at dusk every other day, I am a wolf, a werewolf. I have killed dogs and drunk their blood, but little girls taste better. Their flesh is tender and sweet, their blood rich and warm. I have eaten many a maiden, as I have been on raids with my 9 companions. I am a werewolf. Ha! If the sun were to set, I would soon fall on one of you and make a meal of you. Again he burst into frightful laughter, and the girls, unable to endure it any longer, fled. The scene you have just listened to is my abridged adaptation of the opening section of the Reverend Sabine Baring-Gould's chapter on JEAN GRENIER in his 1865 book, The Book of Werewolves. It is an evocative reimagining of an encounter between the supposed werewolf and some shepherd girls, and reads just like a Victorian or Edwardian ghost story, which is exactly what it is. I've put a link to it in the description. Still, Jean Grenier was a real person. He tended sheep with a 13-year-old girl, Marguerite Poirier, who had often complained of Jean's horrible stories about eating dogs and human flesh. But her concerns were ignored until the day she came home terribly frightened, her clothes badly torn, claiming she had been attacked by a werewolf with reddish fur and a stumpy tail. A werewolf who she said was Jean Grenier. As several area children had disappeared, Grenier was arrested and brought before the Parliament of Bordeaux, where it was established that he had murdered and eaten several children. Grenier claimed a mysterious lord of the forest had given him both a magic ointment and a wolfskin, with which he could transform himself into a werewolf. But the court rejected the idea of witchcraft and of lycanthropy, believing that part of the case was all in Grenier's diseased mind. Instead, due to Grenier's age, low intelligence, and physical neglect, the court showed remarkable leniency for the time, 1603, and sentenced him to life imprisonment in a monastery at Bordeaux, with any escape punishable by death. 7 years later, a visitor found Grenier, quote, diminutive in stature, very shy, and unwilling to look anyone in the face. His eyes were deep-set and restless, his teeth long and protruding, his nails black and in places worn away. His mind was completely barren. He seemed unable to comprehend the smallest things. End of quote. he still claimed to have really been a werewolf and said he still had a desire to eat human flesh. He said the Lord of the Forest had twice appeared to him, but that he had driven him off by making the sign of the cross. Grenier passed away soon after this interview, aged 20. In his book Werewolves, Elliott O'Donnell gives a rather different version of the case, a version full of black humor, such as the following remarks said to have taken place during Grenier's trial. Quote, "One old woman," he said, "whom he found alone in a cottage, showed extraordinary agility in trying to escape. She raced round tables, clambered over chairs, crawled under a bed, and finally hid in a cupboard and held the door so fast that he had to exert all his force to open it. And then," he added, "in spite of all my trouble, she proved to be as tough as leather." And he made a grimace that provoked much laughter. End of quote. Another detailed account, which says that Grenier was imprisoned in the Franciscan friary of St. Michael the Archangel at Bordeaux, can be found in Montague Summers' The Werewolf in Lore and Legend, which fleshes out many of the points we have been discussing. There is a link to the text in the description. But what do you think, dear listeners? Was Jean Grenier really a werewolf? Did he really have an ointment and a wolfskin that he could use to become a werewolf? Was he really in league with the devil, with the Lord of the Forest? Or was he a serial killer? Or was it all an hallucination of his rather dim mind? Please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Video in today's presentation is courtesy of Dr. Curious, while the music is the classic Ghost Processional by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. And I must apologize for my gravelly voice today. I probably sound like Jean Grenier. Next thing you guys will be thinking I've got an ointment and a wolfskin at home. Well, if I do, I'll never tell. Greetings, dear listeners. Hope you're all doing well. I've got some great news for you all. No, it's not that somebody's found the cure for COVID-19. Nothing as mundane as that. No, I've learned that you don't have, if you want to become a werewolf, you no longer have to find another werewolf to bite you first. You don't have to get another werewolf to bite you and infect you with the lycanthropy gene or virus. No, nothing like that. You can do it yourself. So what do you have to do? Well, wait till the night of the full moon and one is coming up pretty soon. Then at midnight, sneak off into the deep, dark woods and find a clearing in the middle of the woods. Then, on the ground below, scratch a pentagram, and in the middle of the pentagram, build a great big bonfire. Then strip off, kneel in front of the bonfire, and recite the following incantation or prayer or poem or chant, which I found in Elliott O'Donnell's 1912 book, Werewolves. Now, if you don't know who Elliott O'Donnell was, he was an Anglo-Irish ghost hunter who was active about 100 years ago. And he wrote over 40 books on ghosts, elementals, haunted houses, and of course one on werewolves. And you can sometimes still find these in the library. So, from Elliott O'Donnell's Werewolves of 1912, you would recite the following. Spirits from the deep, who never sleep, be kind to me. Wow, I can hear the spirits coming already. Spirits from the deep, who never sleep, be kind to me. Spirits from the grave, without a soul to save, be kind to me. Spirits of the trees that grow upon the leas, be kind to me. Spirits of the air, foul and black, not fair, be kind to me. Water spirits hateful, to ships and bathers faithful, be kind to me. Spirits of earthbound dead, that glide with noiseless tread, be kind to me. Spirits of heat and fire, destructive in your ire, be kind to me. Spirits of cold and ice, patrons of crime and vice, be kind to me. Wolves, vampires, satyrs, ghosts, elect of all the devilish hosts, I pray you send hither, send hither, send hither, the great gray shape that makes men shiver, 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 shiver. Come, come, come. And then, when the flames of your bonfire turn blue, the evil spirit will appear. O'Donnell says, it is sometimes visible in the guise of a huntsman, which is perhaps its most popular shape, sometimes in the form of a monstrosity, partly man and partly beast, and sometimes it is seen ill-defined and only partially materialized. And then you can strike a bargain with the evil spirit for a small consideration like your soul or your firstborn child, and the spirit will grant you the ability to transform yourself into a werewolf. Now, the procedure is a little more complicated than that. It often involves ingesting certain substances, most of which are either poisonous or illegal, or both. And it also involves rubbing your body down with various vile ointments. So to me, this whole thing comes under the heading, don't try this at home. But if you really insist, if you really want to be a werewolf, I've left a link in the description to the full text of Elliott O'Donnell's 1912 Werewolves, and it's chapter 5, I think, How to Become a Werewolf, where you can get the chant and everything else that you have to do. And I guess I should wish you good luck. I guess. Want to be a werewolf? Good luck. So, dear listeners, stay safe, stay subscribed. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren. I write and tell original tales of cryptids such as the Night Floaters, the Werewolves, the Black-Eyed Children, as well as original ghost stories. I'm locked out of my usual studio right now, so I'm making these quick and dirty outdoor videos for your amusement. So, and once upon a time, I was actually going to write a book about werewolves, so I collected a whole bunch of werewolf stories and legends. So, folks, let me know in the comments if you would like me to make some short videos with some of these. And with that, I will say, as I always say at the end, stay hungry. And I'm now going to ask our lovely and talented camera crew to give you a panorama shot of tonight's beautiful but rather ominous sunset. And I'll just step aside so you can get a better view. Till midnight, Cheers. The Case of Christine Armand. Ghoul. The following case was reported by the famous Anglo-Irish ghost hunter Elliott O'Donnell in his 1912 book Werewolves. I have edited O'Donnell's original text and tried to put things in my own words as much as possible. But sometimes you just have to go with the master's own purple prose. Back in 1910, there lived, in France, a lovely, rich, and very spoiled young woman named Christine Armand. Christine became interested in spiritualism, taking part in seances where she experienced strange phenomena, strange paranormal phenomena, some of it faked. But she also came into contact, to use O'Donnell's words, with earth-bound spirits of the lowest and most undesirable order. Murderers, lunatics, vice elementals, and ghouls. Unfortunately, given a chance, such earthbound spirits attach themselves to unfortunate victims and follow them home. They followed Christine home, rapping on the walls of her bedroom like poltergeists and haunting the watches of the night. In the wee hours, she would often wake up screaming, having dreamt of scary monsters trying to steal her beautiful body and her soul. A spiritualist she consulted told Christine that her dreams were really projections, that she had acquired the power of astral projection through attending seances and now projected herself unconsciously while asleep. A doctor she consulted advised Christine to go to the seaside and lose herself in pleasure, balls, concerts, and theaters, and the whirl of social activity, and of course the company of young men. But the spirits followed her to the seaside and bided their time. As Christine was beautiful and rich, she had many suitors. The one she chose was André Leclerc, the only son of a very wealthy widow. Sadly, before they could be married, Madame Leclerc, who suffered from obesity, had a massive heart attack and died. Everyone, especially Christine, was overwhelmed by grief, for she had grown very fond of her prospective mother-in-law, whom she felt was a paragon of good taste. The afternoon before the funeral, Christine complained of a bad headache and went to lie down. But 2 hours later, strange footsteps were heard coming down the stairs. Wondering who it could be, Madame Armand went to look and was astonished to see Christine, who stared at her with blazing red eyes, her feral mouth twisted in anger and hunger. Ignoring her mother, she pushed past her and leapt out the front door, which she slammed behind her. Madame Armand told her husband, who immediately went looking for the missing girl, but Christine was nowhere to be found. Late that night, as midnight rapidly approached, the Armands heard someone pounding on their front door. It was André Leclerc, who looked like he was about to throw up. In fact, there were splatters of vomit on his shoes. "Where is she?" the parents cried. André only nodded. "Please, I must sit down," he gasped. "I don't know how I can tell you." Andre collapsed into a chair and hid his face in his hands. He was shaking convulsively, like a man in a fit, or a man in mortal terror. Eventually he raised his head and asked for a stiff brandy. After draining it in a single gulp, he was finally able to talk. When your servant came to my house at 9 o'clock and told me Mademoiselle Christine was missing, I immediately said I would help him search for her. But just then, Jacques, my valet, shaking in fear, came to me and asked me to come upstairs. Immediately. We stood outside the door where my mother's body lay in her coffin, and from inside we could hear the sound of chewing, of smacking lips, of grinding like an animal gnawing on some bones. But that wasn't all we heard. We also heard the sound of heels and the crinkling of a dress. I went downstairs and gathered the other servants, arming them with heavy sticks. We then went back upstairs and threw open the door. We found Christine there, crouching over my mother's corpse and eating one of her stout legs. She had been dining for a while, as the carpet was covered with bones and body parts which looked like chunks of raw meat which had been chewed and spit out. Her face was stained with red gore. Christine sprang from the floor, slashing one of the maids across the face with a hand that had turned into a bloody claw. And then she ran out the door and disappeared into the night, and we don't know where she is gone. Andre was too embarrassed to add, but the main reason they didn't pursue Christine was projectile vomiting, as the ghastly scene before them had made them all sick to their stomachs. Ah, those rich French diets. But I digress. In the middle of the night, the local gendarmerie finally located Christine in an isolated graveyard, attacking a freshly made grave with hands which had morphed into huge murderous claws. Elliott O'Donnell concludes, in the chase that ensued, fortunately for her and for all concerned, she plunged into a river, was swept away by the current, and drowned. O'Donnell concluded, this case of Christine Armand seems to me to be clearly a case of ghoulism. What the spiritualist had told her was correct. She had projected herself unconsciously, and the hideous things she imagined were phantoms in a dream, were elementals, ghouls, her projected spirit encountered on the superphysical plane. After sundry efforts to steal her body, when she was thus separated from it, one of them had at length succeeded, and incarcerated in her beautiful frame had hastened to satisfy its craving for human carrion. Yuck. I don't know what human flesh tastes like, but this whole story is in bad taste. Or is that tongue-in-cheek? And who knew taking a nap could be so dangerous? Thank you so much for listening. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories about the night floaters, werewolves, and black-eyed children. So please consider subscribing, and be sure to drop a like, share, and ring the bell so you won't miss any upcoming videos. I have to apologize for my voice. It's a little on the rough side today. Must be all that raw meat I've been eating recently. Till midnight. Cheers.
Greetings, dear listeners.
Hope you're all doing well. Recently, I uploaded a couple of videos about how to become a werewolf based on information I found in Elliott O'Donnell's 1912 book, Werewolves. Well, tonight we're going to return to that source to find out how to get rid of a werewolf. That's how to get rid of a werewolf. In the section on werewolves in the Netherlands, Elliott O'Donnell describes the following spell for exorcising a werewolf. That's exorcising a werewolf, not exercising a werewolf, exorcising. I quote, "First of all, a night when the moon is in the full is selected. Then at 12 o'clock, the werewolf is seized, securely bound, and taken to an isolated spot." Sounds like the werewolves in the Netherlands are a little more docile than your average werewolf. But I digress. Back to the text. "And taken to an isolated spot. Here a circle of about 7 feet in diameter is carefully inscribed on the ground, and in the exact center of it, the werewolf is placed and so fastened that he cannot possibly get away. Then 3 girls, always girls, come forward armed with ash twigs, with which they flog him most unmercifully." This is starting to get a little kinky here. "They flog him most unmercifully, calling out as they do so, 'Grey wolf ugly, grey wolf old.'" Not sure I like that one so much. "Grey wolf ugly, grey wolf old, do at once as you are told. Leave this man and fly away, right away, far away, where 'tis night and never day. Go, fly away to the sky, devil of grey wolf, thee we defy. Out, out with a howl and yell, 'twill carry thee faster and sure to hell. Away, away, shoo, shoo, shoo. Do you think we care a jot for you? We'll whip thee again with a crack, 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 scourge thee and beat thee, till thou art black. Fool of a grey wolf, we have thee at last. Back to thy hell home, out of him fast. Fast, 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 our patience won't last. We'll scratch thee, we'll prick thee, we'll prod thee, we'll scald thee. Fast, fast, out of him fast." And then they throw various liquids onto the poor werewolf. I don't know how well that would work with Larry Talbot, Lon Chaney Jr., but I suppose if it doesn't cure them, it will kill them. Evil spirits, granting the powers of lycanthropy, often provided applicants with a belt they would put on in order to transform into werewolves. Well, one day, 2 young lovers were walking through sand dunes along the Friesland coast when they found a girdle composed of dark plaited hair fastened with a plain gold buckle. The young woman, Mary Ann, grabbed it and wound it around her waist. Oh dear. Oh dear. When Mary Ann came to, she found she had torn out her boyfriend's throat and eaten part of his thigh. And then she realized it was a werewolf's belt. For a moment, she thought about casting it into the sea. But then she decided to keep it. It was unique. Nobody she knew actually had one. None of the other girls. It matched her shoes, and besides, you can always get another boyfriend. Oh dear indeed. Well, dear listeners, if you found a werewolf belt, would you put it on? Let me know in the comments below, and tell the truth now. And stay safe, stay subscribed, ring that bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos. please feel free to share this video and any of my videos with anyone you please. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren. I write and tell original horror stories about cryptids such as the Night Floaters, werewolves, the black-eyed children, and of course, let's all make like werewolves and stay hungry. I'm now going to ask the lovely and talented camera crew to give us a panorama shot of tonight's very dramatic sky. We just had a big thunderstorm come through, and it looks like another one is on its way. So, till midnight, cheers.